Christians, good evening. On this Sunday evening, I hope and trust that you all had a good weekend, and I hope you had a good day today. Tonight, going to continue in our series on the book of Job. We are currently in Job chapter 13. Job chapter 13. And tonight, we're going to begin in verse 19. But before I start there, by way of reminder, I want to remind you where we ended last night, which was in verse 18, where Job says that he has ordered his cause. In verse 18, Job said, "Behold now, I have ordered my cause, and I know that I shall be justified." I have ordered my cause, Job says, and I know that I shall be justified. This is a bold statement, particularly coming from one who is undergoing such extremity of affliction. And Job finds himself in a very strange situation, which is strange only in that it is not common for the Christian to see and to understand that the faithfulness that they have is rendered more illustrious when they are undergoing affliction. It is just the way that it is. And it is contrary to the human condition to think this way. But when it comes to those who are believers, we know that that is how it really is. At least that's what we are trained or taught in the Word of God to see. But once again, the faithfulness of the saint is rendered more conspicuous under the weight and oppression of affliction, persecution, and tribulation, rather than what is understood to be perceived as a right standing with God and as a emblem of faith, which is exhibited through prosperity. And when you read the book of Job, I would argue that it is more likely that faith is exhibited more in your affliction and how you go through it, rather than your condition that exists within the realm of a prosperous existence that Job once had. But last night we talked about how Job says, after hearing from his friends who could do nothing except accuse him, and falsely so, for being in a state or a condition of ill repute or disrepute, whichever the right word is these days. But anyway, the idea is that these men were complaining with Job and accusing him of being some kind of a flagrant sinner, which is what results in his having to deal with this onslaught of affliction from God. And as we have said over and over again, they were wrong. They misappropriated their accusations. And not only did they misappropriate their accusation, they never actually brought an actual accusation or charge that they could verify and prove. So Job goes on in verse 18. He says, "Listen to me. Listen to what I'm about to say. Be quiet for a little bit and let me explain the situation." And he says, "Behold now," in verse 18, "I have ordered my cause, and I know that I'll be justified." And we pointed out that Job is using language that is akin to legal proceedings. An indictment has been made against Job. Job knows that he is innocent, and now he has organized his case, and now he has ordered his cause to be presented before God. And before he enters into those proceedings, Job is able to say by faith that I know I shall be justified. He says, I know it. I'm not contemplating it. I'm not considering it. I don't think it. I'm hoping that things go well for me. I've done my best. What Job says is that I have ordered my cause, and I know that I shall be justified. He says, I know it. Job has no doubt whatsoever in the matter. He is 100% thoroughly, unequivocally convinced that he shall be justified. And he says, let my cause be brought before the Lord and let him judge me.
In here.
And this is what he is saying here. So Job is a man of conviction. Job is a man that knows his own heart. And as we proceed through this chapter, we're going to see that there are several doctrinal observations that we can glean from here. And I picked up 5. 1, that a well-ordered conscience gives boldness in trial. We see that Job is bold. Job says, I ordered my cause. I'm ready to present my case. And what Job says is that his case is full proof. Full proof. So much so that he is able to say that I know I will be justified. Even though his integrity may be confidently pleaded, though sin is humbly confessed, uprightness and perfection are not the same. And so Job is putting on display here in this chapter and in these verses that integrity can be confidently pleaded. Boldly and confidently pleaded. Job is a man who knows what assurance is all about. And he knows that being assured is glorifying to God because it is God is the one who grants assurance. The same who gave grace, the same who gave faith, the same who extended mercy and compassion, the same who has his love for his sheep. He it is that gives his servants absolute, unequivocal assurance. Why? Not having anything to do with the servant, but everything to do with the one that he is in service to. This is what is being discussed. Number 3, God allows his servants to speak freely, especially when their conscience is clear. He allows his servants to speak freely when they have a clear conscience. Faith is not always silent. In fact, faith is rarely silent when affliction has seized the person of faith. Sometimes it reasons, sometimes it pleads, sometimes it appeals, sometimes it laments, it cries, sometimes it fears. But whatever faith does, whenever affliction overtakes the person who has faith, that kind of faith, going under that kind of a trial, is almost never silent. It cannot help but to cry out. Something else we can learn from this. False accusations are more grievous than the afflictions themselves, in spite of all that Job has been going through. The greater part of this book of Job is about getting a tongue lashing from those who were supposed to be his friends and comforters. And we see that all they did was aggravate his afflictions. The words that were leveled against him, the charges and the accusations leveled against him by his friends, on top of what his wife already told him, curse God and die. Job is finding out that these false accusations and the lashing of tongues against him are more grievous than his afflictions that have overtaken him materially and physically. And then lastly, I want to point out that silence is not always submission. Silence is not always submission. Just because a person of faith, when they're going through a trial, when they're going through affliction, when they're going through tribulation, if they are silent, it doesn't mean that they are in submission. It doesn't mean that they are saying, you're right about me. If you say that I'm a sinner, don't take my silence to be that I agree with you. That is what he's saying. Sometimes it can lead to self-destruction. But what Job is saying, he says, don't mistake my silence. If I'm silent, don't mistake it for submission to your accusations. And this is some of the things, a few of the things that I was able to put down for our consideration as we continue to proceed through these verses. Brother Jeffrey, go ahead.
Yeah,
Brother Jeffrey.
Yeah, I'm right here, Jonathan. I just want to say that after all that Job has spoken to his friends so far in his defense, okay, after all of that, after all he has done, he has laid out his case perfectly. And yet his friends still don't believe a word he says. And again, Jonathan, I have to go back to question just the very basis and nature of the friendship and the relationship they have with Job. Were these guys really good friends to begin with? Because they're sure, like you just pointed out, they're not treating him like a good friend right now. And so it's going to be interesting to see what else Job has to say in the next few verses you're going to go over tonight to increase his defense and show them that he is not guilty of any sin.
Absolutely. And I'll say something else I want to add to that, Brother Jeffrey, and that is that this tells us also the kind of a friend Job is. Because he's not going after them hard and heavy as you think that he would. Mm-hmm. But he is also being admonishing, and he's also extending exhortations to his friends. And he is the one who is undergoing this suffering, this immense suffering. But yet, he doesn't get overly defensive. He doesn't go after the attack. He doesn't say that he's superior to them. He doesn't do it. He says, I'm not inferior to you, but he doesn't say I'm superior to you.
Right.
Job doesn't go after them. So it gives you some insight into his character, because if you think about it, if he's this way with them, with their dogpiling on top of him based on everything he's gone through, especially when you go back to, I think it was Bildad, who addresses his kids. And it's like, wait a minute, you're really digging it in deep. But Job, he doesn't go back. He doesn't go on the attack. He doesn't go on a real attack. What he starts doing is appealing to God and says, you guys got it wrong. And if you had it right, you would be able to tell me what I did wrong, but you haven't done that. You haven't done that. And he says, and what Job is saying is this, just like you don't know what I've done, I don't know what I've done if I have done anything. So why is my assessment any different than yours? Why, if you don't know what I've done wrong and I don't know what I've done wrong, why can't that be the starting place of our assessment where you can help me appeal to God to find out what it is? Help me to become restored if it is a result of my sin. But Job didn't know what was going on with him, and neither did they. And neither did they. Brother Pat, go ahead.
I also find it interesting that, Satan is the accuser of the brethren, and yet he uses proxies. He uses people to accomplish his cause, because these guys are supposed to be Job's friends. Who are the people who are accusing him?
Right.
His very friends. And so, we talk about a lot about God using means, and God using people for good. Well, we better be careful that because Satan is perfectly willing to use people for evil.
You're right, brother. Somebody, JJ, I can't tell if it's a woman or a man. Forgive me, JJ, but JJ says friends can wound more than enemies. They definitely do. And the reason why is because they're friends. That's why it cuts so deep. And you know, we live in a society, we live in a time today. Believe nothing you hear. Everything is fake news now, right? Fake news, fake. Everything is fake. Fake. Nothing is true. And and then the person that's always telling you that is the same person telling you you should believe them. But they tell you, forget the conspiracy. Anything that doesn't seem right to you or to them is a conspiracy. But in reality, in this case of Job, there is one. There actually is one. It's legitimately one. Notice there's all kind of accusations going around, but the real accusation that was leveled against Job was made to God by Satan. And there's no way that Job's friends or himself could know that. And Job is appealing to God and asking him to break his silence, but God at this point has not decided to disclose himself. So there is something else going on beyond what it can be understood by human reason or by human understanding. There is a conspiracy going on here. And Job doesn't know about it and his friends don't know about it, but there is one. The conspiracy is that Satan has leveled every piece of his arsenal so far at Job, and Job has no idea about it. And everything that Satan does is always with him in the background. Satan never reveals himself. Look at all the times that he reveals himself in the scriptures. He never reveals his true self. He took the form of Judas. He took the form of a serpent. You know, when you see Satan intervene, it's always secretly. It's always secretly. He took the form of humans. But he never shows you who he really is. The only one who was capable of knowing that was the Lord Jesus Christ himself. And so you're right, brother. You're right 100%. Sister Lisa, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I just wanted to share a quote I heard today that seems so fitting here, especially now that you're talking about how Job is interacting with his friends at this point.
Right.
The quote goes like this: the test, I'm probably going to butcher it like I always do, but the test of a Christian's true character is how they handle those who have mishandled them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wait, say that again. Say that again, Lisa. Say that again.
The true character of a Christian is how he handles those who have mishandled him.
Oh, yes. Very
See
good.
what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, so, and we see this in Job. He is being gracious. He is stating his case, but he never goes on the attack. And, you know, you made a comment yourself. We see the difference in the way Job is behaving versus, you know, Bildad and Zophar, and Eliphaz. So I thought that was a good one. And I'm going to try to remember that, because that's going to be, that's the true test right there, you know.
You should type that and put it up on the screen, because I think it's good for, and you know, you should put that up there and let people get an opportunity to get a screenshot of that, because I think that's an excellent saying. And if you wouldn't mind, send it to me. Send it to me. I like that a lot.
You got it. You got it.
I'm gonna add it into my Bible notes on Job. So now we get to verse 19. And this is another good verse. This is just another amazing verse, which I coupled with last night, but speaking about Job having ordered his cause, it was, to me, I felt something that was really important for us to sort of linger on and to sort of bask in a little bit. And this is another one of those kind of verses. I'm not saying I'll get stuck here, but there's so much here that is doctrinally sound, and it has so many practical implications in our Christian walk. And that's one of the beauties of this book. You know, it's a large book, but you have the poetic, you have the theological, you have the practical, you have the soteriological, you have all these things, you have the eschatological. You have every one of these, all these things exist in this book. And Job is educating us on this. The book itself is an education, a complete, thorough education. You could have the entire book of Job, and that's all you could have, and you could preach the gospel and teach from this book everything that we've learned in the entire Bible. You can learn from this book. And it's an amazing, but you have to dig for it. You have to look for it and search for it and seek the truth within it with all your heart and mind and soul. You have to look, it's there. And you see this in many books of the Bible. Psalms, you see it in Psalms. You see it in Genesis. But you see it throughout. You see it throughout. So Job, as we get to verse 19, it says this. Job says, after saying that he's ordered his cause, he now says, who is he that will plead with me? Who is he that will plead with me? For now, if I hold my tongue, I shall give up the ghost. Job asks a very important question. Sister Kim, we're in Job chapter 13, verse 19. Job 13, verse 19. Who is he that will plead with me? If I hold my tongue, I shall give up the ghost. If I stay silent, I'll die. I can't stay silent. Job is challenging. He's issuing a challenge to his accusers. He's in effect throwing down the gauntlet. He's throwing down the gauntlet. He throws down a solemn challenge. He's not being arrogant. He's not being arrogant. Most people, if they were to hear Job speaking today, saying these things, they would call him arrogant and prideful. This is what they would say. But he's not. There's a difference between arrogance and moral and spiritual courage. This is what Job is having. He's exhibiting moral courage, not doubt, not fear, not worried about his condition with God. He knows his heart and he knows his God. And that has done nothing except produce moral courage. That's what he's showing. And we cannot conflate moral courage and spiritual courage with arrogance and pride. You have to know the difference. You must know the difference. Sister Mariah, anything you want to add?
A little busy at the moment.
Okay, I'll come back to you. Sister Meg, you want to add anything?
I just want to add one small thing. I just think that we're starting to see the boldness of Job as we go through this chapter, and this verse to me is his boldness is fire. He says, "If I hold my tongue, I shall give up the ghost." He's basically saying that if he remains silent, it would be like the same equivalency to him surrendering his life.
Yeah.
That the intent, that his conviction is so intense that he just wants to be vindicated by God. He's pleaded his case. And sorry, my dog is going nuts, but
Yeah, it's coming through really loud.
I know it's him. I'm sorry, I'm gonna walk away.
That's all right.
But yeah, like I said, he wants to be vindicated. And to me, in this chapter, if I just read this chapter alone, not knowing any other part of the story, I would know God's going to show up.
Oh, yeah.
I would know that just reading this chapter without seeing anything else, that the boldness of Job, God is going to show up. And what I was thinking about that in my thoughts of this is, where do we get in our prayer life? Where do we get in the spaces of our suffering when we're going before the feet of the Lord in our prayer? That if you prayed that one prayer, God's going to show up for you. Mm-hmm. That when you get to that one space in your life where you are pleading, where you are lamenting in times of trial and suffering, how bold are you going to be to go before the throne of God and say, you know what? I'm not leaving until you show up.
Right.
And I'm going to tell you something. He will. I know it. I've
Oh,
been
he
through
will.
it.
Oh, he will always show up. No doubt about it. He will always show up. He will always show up, and he'll always deliver. Just when you think you run out of strength, that's when he picks up the pieces for you and lifts you up and holds your head up. He does. Brother Pat, go ahead.
I want to say something about these friends. I feel like they almost represent different personality types. And it's easy for us to like harp on Billadad because he's maybe hot-headed. You know what I mean? He's a certain type of personality type. But I've got to tell you, man, the words of the other two friends don't hurt any less because there's nothing like a Zophar who's like a reserved, well thought out person. And when a person like that says the thing, you're like, wait a second. This isn't just hot-headed words. You've actually, it's like the knife in the back. You know what I mean? Because you know this person, you know he's a person that thinks things out. And it's like, wow, you thought this through and you still said this stuff? You know what I mean?
Yep, I know exactly what you mean. It's really amazing because, and you bring up a good point, because you can't look at this, these discourses from these men as a linear discussion. From Job's perspective, it's a collaboration, and each one of these guys has a different weapon set. So, you know, one guy is shooting the bullets, the other guy's firing the cannons, and the other guy is throwing smoke out there so you can't see where to go. So, you know, and so he's just getting it from all sides. But you're seeing something here that's very interesting with Job. Job is taking control. Job is taking control of the conversation. You see that here. He is taking control. And you see it build up until when we get to Elihu, the youngest guy who comes in, the new guy. You know, he thinks he's going to represent, you know, the future. He's going to represent, you know, progress. You know, he's going to be the one like, okay, you old stogies, you had your say, but now I'm going to come show you the new interpretations of everything. And I'm going to talk to Job, you know, and then Job has something for him too. But you see Job taking control. Job is starting to dominate the conversation. And he's starting to dominate the conversation in a meaningful way, and primarily because he invokes God as where he needs to be, as who he needs to have judge his situation. Job wants to make his case before God, make his arguments. My mouth is full of arguments. I've ordered my cause before you. You know, sort this out for me and so they can see. But also, God, so that I know that you and me are good, that we're still where we always have been. You've been silent lately. Talk to me, speak to me, show me. Saturate my heart with the joy that I had before. Something is missing here, but I know you'll never leave me. I know my mediator lives. And Job here, he says, who is he that will plead with me? There's only one who can plead with him. There's only one who can plead with him. There's only one who can satisfy him. There's only one who can bring him comfort. Just one, and only one. And Job's knowledge of this, his what he understands about this, that is where his courage comes from. That's where his strength comes from. Job is an elite servant. If God has his army, and he does, Job is probably the commander of SEAL Team 6. He's showing us how we are to handle under God's rod. He's showing us. This challenge that he makes when he says, who is he that will plead with me? Job is throwing down the gauntlet, like I said. And this is not a defiant challenge. Not defiant to God, especially not defiant to God, not at all. But what he's defying is these false accusations made against him. And he's asking for an honest, legitimate, sincere confrontation. He's asking for a productive confrontation. Job is not running from the problem. Notice, he doesn't just leave. He doesn't tell his friends to leave. He stays in the thick of it. Job does not think about it. It would be easy for him to get up and leave, or it'd be easy for him to tell them to leave, but he doesn't. He stays right there and goes toe to toe with them. Moral courage, spiritual courage. He's defying anything that threatens his faithfulness. He's not letting anything put him in a position to charge God falsely, and he never does. Job is demanding a just process. He's demanding a process. He wants justice. He doesn't want insinuations and innuendo, rumors, hearsay. That's not what he wants. He wants a just hearing. And then he can proceed. He's tired of all this indirect condemnation that these men are leveling at him. One condemnation after another, but no reason for it. No true accusation, no fault, no sin they can actually point to. Job is saying if there is an accuser, let him show himself. Let him show himself. But guess what? There is an accuser. There is an accuser. And we also have that one accuser making himself manifest in these three men, Zophar, Bildad, and Eliphaz. And they have nothing in him. So Satan has nothing in him. Go ahead, Brother Jeffrey.
Yeah, Jonathan, I was just going to say that the devil, the accuser, is losing this argument. His three stooges, prophets, whatever you want to call them, are not doing or performing the way and doing what he thought they would. They're not leading Job further away from God, whereas Job is now leaning into God to defend himself because he knows he's innocent.
Right.
And so the faith that, we should pray, my brother, for faith like Job has, because I can tell you, I don't know if I've ever had faith like that before. I mean, Job lost everything. He has nothing except the rags he's probably wearing, and that's it, covered with boils from head to toe. And yet he still leans in to God. What faith that truly is.
Amen, brother. Amen. Good word. Sister Mariah.